Welcome to Brazos Matters. I'm Jay Sokol, and co-hosting with me today is Avery Foster, Texas A&M journalism major and KAMU content contributor. Today we are digging into the reality of dating apps, the habits, the patterns, and what keeps people swiping long after that first match. Starts with downloading the app, then you create the profile, you scroll through your camera roll, you look for the perfect picture and crafting a bio that's just the right mix of charming and clever. But as simple as all that sounds, dating today is not easy, especially when social media turns the whole thing into a game. The apps have slogans like designed to be deleted or make the first move. But behind the catchy slogans is something we don't always talk about, how addictive the platforms can really be. So our guest today is here to shed light on the addictive nature of dating apps and the mental struggles that users often face while navigating them, as well as some healthier alternatives to consider. So with us today is Cameron House, a licensed professional counselor in Bryan who works as a private practice psychotherapist. She has also held leadership roles in corporate behavioral health settings. Cameron, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. A pleasure to have you here.
So much fun.
Avery, take it away.
We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to talk about, this topic today.
Good.
So originally, before we even settled, we asked you for a list of trends that you're seeing today. So why is this the most important one to you?
Well, I just hear a lot about it, and I think I'm in the business of human connection. Most of the reasons that people come to see me is because they're having difficulty in some of their connections and so this one comes up a lot, and I'm seeing some concerning things, and I've had to sort of walk a lot of people through what are we doing here in 2025? Yeah.
What about generational differences? Do you have a fairly wide range of ages that come to you with some kind of issues related to this? Because I have friends my age who are using these, but obviously they're probably optimized for a younger crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that's looking for a partner or, looking for some connection, people are used, this is how it's done. This is what we hear. And, it's the easy thing. You can just download something and enter into the world for that. So no, I know the young folks, like yourself, this has been always the case, but for the old people like us, it's brand new, but it's the number one way people start to look for connection.
Who tends to come in front of you, though, gender and age?
I mean, mostly women come to therapy, let's be honest, Jay.
It's true. I know.
Despite the need. I'm kidding. I mean, I've got a lot of just middle-aged folks, too, that are out of a committed relationship, starting a new life and entering into possibly a whole new world. This was, we met people in college or at church or at work, and now it's done differently. And so it's a new landscape. So walking them through that newness is interesting. And then walking younger people through just sort of the mind games and the confusion, I think. Yeah.
So some interesting research that I was doing before, we got to the questions is I found an article about a lawsuit that was filed against Match Group, which is the owner of Hinge, Tinder, and a more exclusive dating app called Latch. And what the lawsuit was stating was that a group of consumers were, suing because they believed that dating apps are addictive. And so I kind of want to know from your professional standpoint, do you believe that these corporate companies are profiting off of, consumers' emotional vulnerability?
I absolutely. And when I read that lawsuit, I thought to myself, okay, did you really think that they weren't, a for-profit company, that they really were this, here I am, I'm going to put myself out of business. I'm going to find everybody a partner and then we'll close shop. That's not what's happening. And so I found the lawsuit to be a little, I don't know. I think if it's on your phone and it's some app you download, it probably has an algorithm or an ability to addict your brain. That's what's happening. Go to any waiting room now these days, anywhere. Everybody's face is in their phone. So the phones are addictive. The apps are addictive. The gamification of anything, that's what keeps us in. And so I don't think we should be surprised that dating apps are doing that either. So there's no question that they are meant for engagement. That's what the business is, to keep you engaged. So, of course, that is antithetical to finding you a person and sending you on your way, right? So there's no question that it is like a slot machine. That's that intermittent reinforcement. I get a little hit, and then I don't, and I don't, and I don't, and then I do, and then I don't, and I do, And that's what most of the apps are built on.
But Cameron, they say it's designed to be deleted.
Yeah,
They said it.
I mean, I can hear the decision for that little line in a meeting at the place. I can hear they're saying we're not really here to find them a partner. What do we do? How about this? We'll say, it's like, okay, that's it gives us a little oh, okay, yeah. No, it's not. It's not designed to be deleted.
Definitely with the subscription purposes and those aiming towards, getting you to buy these more exclusive features.
Absolutely. Our little brain sees that, red dot, that somebody liked you and how many people liked you, but you can't see them, I mean, it's just built that way. Your little brain says, oh, I got to go get that. Well, that's going to be $29.99 a month, So, yeah, I mean, I'm afraid that's the deal. It can, listen, they say 1 in 10 people are meeting their long-term partner on these apps. Okay, great. So it's not that it's a total, sham, but let's be honest, it is absolutely meant to keep people engaged first and foremost.
Right.
Yep.
And on that note, when we had our discussion, we were speaking about how dating apps are backwards.
Yeah.
You form this illusion of a person strictly just through basic needs that the dating apps give you.
Right.
So, why is this a problem for people trying to develop a connection?
Yeah, well, it just kind of occurred to me that, the dating apps, for me, it's everything is backwards. When you meet someone in the wild, the first thing you might notice their physical appearance, but more than anything, it is that there's just that vibe. There's just something that's very present and physical and between the two of you, and that's where it starts. And then you might learn what their job is, and then you might learn, that kind of thing. But that's the first thing. And so I think the dating apps do everything backwards, sort of like what you're saying, which is I'm going to curate this version of myself, right, very particularly, and I'm going to curate exactly what I want to put across just so slightly and give you a very, sort of surface level take. And then we match on that, and then we start to have a conversation. It just, to me, feels so backwards. Mm-hmm. And we end up then building an illusion and a version of this person based on these pieces of data they've provided that I come up with, right, based on my, what my world, and not necessarily at all what they are. Doesn't mean what they are isn't attractive, but it's not what I formed in my head. So I just feel the whole way feels just, backwards.
Yeah.
But because these dating apps are so ubiquitous now, are you experiencing young people who think this is how it's supposed to be? This is the norm.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and think about if I get on a dating app as a young person and I think, okay, this is it. This is the place. Mm-hmm. And I'm having not very much luck because, perhaps the algorithm are meant to sort of just give me enough, but not too much to have me go away. Or if I, kind of build what I think is a connection with somebody, and then maybe I meet them. And so I begin to internalize that. I begin to think, wow, what's happening here? I begin to sort of think, well, either I externalize it, which is that there's nobody good out there.
Right.
Or I internalize it, which is that I'm no good. And I'm not desirable. I'm not, and that I think that's what the result can be a lot of times. And so we end up kind of painting a picture of what we think the dating world looks like. That's really cynical and sad.
If you just tuned in, I'm Jay Sokol. You're listening to Brazos Matters. We're visiting with Cameron House, a licensed professional counselor who is unpacking the psychological grip of dating apps and the mental health challenges they pose, while guiding us toward more mindful alternatives and healthier ways to connect. So relationships through technology, I think you've said, tend to be one-dimensional, develops false intimacy. So talk more about why people should just stay clear of this form of communication in general?
Well, I might not be saying stay clear of it, right? But go in knowing what it is. First, know that you are going in to use a digital app that is meant to play with your brain and keep you coming back. Be conscious of that. Know that. Okay, so if you can go in with that. And then I also to be aware of something you said, which is this false intimacy. I really think that's important. Again, I'm going, I'm finding, I'm swiping, I'm making a person in my head. What's the first thing that we do when we match with somebody on these things is we end up messaging in the app usually, which is a form of text messaging, right? And it's just, I find text messaging is a very intimate sort of thing. It's just between you and me, and it's, no one's here, no one's looking, and so it's a very intimate conversation that I'm suddenly having with this person that I have built this connection with in my head. And wherever that conversation goes, usually goes on for a bit, and a lot of people say they it's more comfortable to kind of hang out texting, for a bit before you decide to jump into, real life. And so there's, again, sort of this, it's like a hot wired connection that's not really there. And so your brain starts getting excited. And so I think that's kind of also sort of damaging too. So I guess be aware, watch yourself, like know that that's what I think I'm asking people is certainly don't not use them. It is,
right.
But it is to understand what it is and what it is not. Yeah.
Sorry. And you did mention something about convenience over courage. Is that absolutely play a role in?
Yeah, this is probably where I get in trouble maybe a little bit because it sounds judgmental. But let's be honest. I mean, I think if you're ambivalent about partnership, and I'll say that, there are, young folks who are coming in and have I'd like to get married, I'd like to have a family, or I want a partner. That's all wonderful. If you've got folks that maybe have been through a full relationship, they might feel a little ambivalent about, do I want a partner? I'm not sure, do I? So that's a great place to go, be sort of connected when I'm not sure, have one foot out, one foot in. And so dating apps, very convenient, right? I don't know, I'll download them. So there's a little bit of that. And so I think what happens is, it's a little lazy. I have to be honest with you. I feel like it's just a little bit lazy, and which I get because maybe I'm not sure I want to do this. So the dating apps are kind of a lazy way. I know that's kind of a mean thing to say, to sort of stick your foot out there. And so then I think you're kind of going to get what you put out there a little bit, I liken it to, I'm a therapist, and I really like in-person sessions, right? I was a terrible COVID therapist. Like, I was just watching the clock. I'm sorry to all my clients. I hope you didn't notice, but there was just not very much togetherness but one of the things I noticed is that there are some people that are thinking about getting into therapy, right? And so rather than going through the courageous, which I think it's very courageous, of looking for a good person, meeting someone in person, looking for the right therapist, it takes a lot of guts, takes a lot of vulnerability. Some people just fire up some of these websites where you can get a subscription to have a therapist online. And, I think, and what one of they'll go unnamed, websites that do these therapist things are, they say, oh, you can change therapists anytime.
Right.
And it's like, it's not the point. It's a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a relationship. It's a sacred, intimate relationship, right? So I noticed I did some of that during COVID. I thought, well, I'm sitting here, I might as well. But I just noticed that the buy-in for folks was a little less than those that come in person. So that's not to say people who are doing telehealth it's just, and so it made me think of the dating apps as well, is really kind of holding back my vulnerability and just sort of sticking my toe out there rather than being bold and getting out there. So it's kind of what I was thinking about when I was talking about courage over connection. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to go back to the lazy part.
You're right. You had to bring it back to me, didn't you?
When you are working with a client, you might point out to him or her that, hey, this is kind of a lazy way to go about things. Is your client kind of shocked to hear you throw
Okay,
that label
I
out there?
I don't use that word, Jay.
Do you not?
I'm being a little dramatic in here. I just said that to Avery, but no, I did use it. I mean, no, I think what I would say to the client is, hey, listen, like, I think you are pretty ambivalent about this. I think you're not sure. I think you're afraid of getting hurt. You're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of the awkwardness. You're kind of not sure it's worth it, and you're not sure, especially if you've kind of been on the dating apps a bit and had some bad experiences. So, you're gonna kind of get what you put into it a little bit. So I would say, if you really want this, first of all, let's look at, well, do you want something?
Yeah.
And what do you want? And what are your standards, right? Don't get swept up by someone's curated stuff online, but then to decide, no, I really want a partner, and I want this person to value these things. Okay, well, what would a really brave way, bold way to meet someone like that look like? Maybe there's, an extreme here, but we could work our way back. But I think the dating apps, I think you have to look at your motivation there. Yeah.
In your experience, have you seen behavioral changes from people who have spent so much time within these apps?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not good for your self-esteem. It's builds that cynicism, either that there's nobody good out there or that I'm not desirable, right? But it's so easy for people to ghost you, to not respond, to match with you and not say anything. And what do we do as human beings? When we have no information, we always fill it with bad information. We always fill it with, oh, they didn't like me, I wasn't, this enough, that enough, all of that stuff. And so that all pours into us, telling us about ourselves. No matter how mature we think we are, we still take those messages about ourselves, and that's not good for the self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right. And there could be some real hopelessness about that, and and so I really tell people, your desire for human connection is extremely natural and extremely healthy. And this is not really an indication that you are not lovable or desirable, or that there are no people out there anymore to connect with. Trying to like a reality check a little bit. Yeah.
So in a lot of the research that Avery did for this conversation, she was finding evidence of some physical characteristics, some physical changes and habits and things. And Avery, would you bring those up, things that people actually do with their fingers and so forth?
Yeah, so one of them that I was looking at is called twitchy fingers. So it's a physiological pattern correlated with technology characterized by rapid movements. And then another one being facism, which is the tendency to stereotype individuals based on their facial appearance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that at all. There's a lot of research about, people looking at a face and making a determination about what they think about that person, not without question. So that's what you're getting, with the dating apps, is this, curated picture. Yeah, the same kind of thing. I'm not surprised about that. I just, I hate my phone and I love my phone. And we've got to be careful, because these are little computers that are, they're in our brain, and, and we gotta know what they are and understand their benefits, but also realize that these computers know our brains and know how to get us to come back and do what they need. And it's, to me, a little scary. Yeah.
Adding on to the note of like ghosting and unmatching and being able to just, clear a person altogether. We talked about this idea of cultivating the opposite effect. You negate a person's feelings or emotions by just avoiding. And obviously, I think I kind of know why people resort to these behaviors, but from your standpoint, what do you see?
Because it's easy. It's easy. It's harder and more vulnerable to say, hey, I've enjoyed talking with you. I just don't know that I'm feeling a connection, and I really wish you the best. And I mean, that's the honorable thing to do. That, from my mind anyway, is treating someone how you'd like to be treated. Do I want to be rejected if I like this person? No. But would I like it if they were clear with me and communicative and polite? And yeah, I would love that. But it's easier. It's because the connection is not that real. And what's going to happen? They're not going to find you. No one's going to be mad at you. They're not going to know. And so and here's the thing. Human connection happens most deeply when we are vulnerable with each other. When we have a rupture in a friendship that we then repair, that friendship gets deeper. So this is trying to get all the benefits of connection, which I don't even think it is a connection, but with no risk, no vulnerability. And that's not where real human connection comes from. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when we had our pre-discussion chat, we kind of talked about the people who are more susceptible to getting on dating apps. They're the kind of people who are like, oh my God, I want a modern romance story, kind of the delusion of it all. Yeah. And I just want to know, why is this a red flag? And what do you see in people who do go on dating apps and act like this?
Well, again, this is going to be another hot take from Cameron that I might get blowback for, but
Go for it.
I think that the modern romance rom-com that you see that is actually attachment wound bonding. When you see, I can't live without you, you complete me, within 10 days, that is actually me having an attachment wound. That's another show, Jay. Just mark it down.
Attachment wound coming soon.
Sort of a relational deficit that probably comes from childhood trauma. Another show, and so when things happen real fast, there's fast connection. I can't, that's a red flag. Like good human connection are built slow, kind of slowly and so I might say, to answer your question, that it could be that folks that, didn't get the secure attachment that they might need from their families of origin or other relationships might be really wanting and more desperate to find that connection and more willing to kind of look aside from red flags just to have that need met that we could have hoped that they might have come to the table having already had met. And so I think those folks are more susceptible. And then when the dating apps send the message, you're not desirable, all of that, boy, that confirmation bias that I didn't think so. I didn't think I was lovable. That becomes a real cycle that can be very distressing. Yeah.
Okay, so with our few minutes remaining, I want you to help viewers and listeners with some leave behind, some advice here. So if maybe it's people who don't currently use a dating app, but they're thinking about it, the people who are already using them, and maybe those who are absolutely addicted to them. So give us some helpful steps here.
Right. I'll work backwards.
Okay.
The people that are absolutely addicted to them, I think you have to treat it like an addiction.
Yeah.
I think you need to go to rehab, quote unquote. Like I would say, go get a therapist. Doesn't have to be me, but but go see somebody and work with them to help you reduce harm. Right, which could look like deleting the apps, hiding them, only agreeing to go on for a little bit, that kind of thing. You could really reduce that and explore with the therapist what's happening. I think that would be a good thing. For folks that are using the dating app, I would say, wake up a little bit. This is a business. The little red dots and all of those things that are sucking you back in, be a little cynical about it and try to use, and I recommend people that are using the dating apps, if you match with somebody, do a FaceTime call quickly, like soon. Like, hey, I like you too, this is great, okay? And then get the vibe.
Get out of the app.
Get out of the app. I mean, now I understand you're like, oh, safety, Cameron, they have my phone number. I don't know, whatever safe way you want, but get the physical, get a take, the voice, that's such a difference. I think that makes a big difference because very quickly, without going on too long, you can get a feel. And then have a coffee or whatever, but pretty soon I think move to that is a way to make the best of the apps and get to the good stuff. That's what I would say. Now people that aren't, or the advice for people that want to get off of them a little bit is, you got to get out there. It it's not at a bar necessarily like that, but my favorite thing to say is go be and do things that you love, explore those things with folks that you think you might also meet. So it's sort of a shared experience. If you love to do pottery or you love this or you like, go and do the things. Put yourself out there, but it doesn't have to be at a singles thing, but, just meeting other people for that shared experience. I think that's a very important thing. And then it's like, how often are you engaging people in conversation? If like I said, we're in the waiting room, all looking at our phones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how about, hey, that's a great T-shirt. I love that band. You can engage people. How often are we doing that? We're not talking to each other anymore. And so I think that's another big piece too.
So you've got 12 kids. What advice have you given them about dating?
Yeah, they're not asking me any advice.
Nothing?
No. It's funny. I have not talked to them about, my kids have all sort of found their own partners. They've each had, a pretty significant other that they've met very organically. Although I was talking, one of my sons met his lovely girlfriend, long-term girlfriend, on the video game where they do the games together. You can tell I don't do them because I have no idea how it works. But they're having a shared experience. They're doing something together, getting to know each other and, connecting. And so I remember when he first told me, I was like, oh, that's just weird. That's not a real friendship. And then I remember waking up and saying, I mustn't discount my son's very dear connections, even though they might be across the world. Mm-hmm. These are very close friends. And so, he met her and she's lovely. We love her to death, and she moved here, and so that's not a dating app. That is online, right? Yeah. So I don't want to totally discount that, but but the kids, the kids do it all right by themselves.
Yeah, my sister also has an online boyfriend as well that she met through video games as well. Yeah. So it's like, you never know, but there is that common interest that you do find through there.
That's right. It's go and be out there and have shared experiences. Because then maybe you're just bowling. And you like bowling, great. But maybe you're bowling with a bunch of other folks who also like bowling, and one of them turns out to be hot, and you end up, who knows, But I that way it's a little easier to tolerate, I think, yeah.
So any parting shots with a final few seconds?
You got to have courage. I had a dear friend tell me one time, she said, I find you got to know what you're putting out there in the universe. Mm-hmm. Like, do you want this? Why do you want it? Who do you want? Do you mean it? Don't just go out there and get some hit or supply to your ego. That's a lot of what the dating apps are too. If you want this, go and out there and do it intentionally. That's what I think. In person.
Cameron House, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. Do you get that list of other things you're going to talk to me about someday?
Absolutely. We'll be in touch through an app.
Great.
Brazos Matters is a production of Aggieland's Public Radio 90.9 KAMU-FM, a member of Texas A&M University's Division of Community Engagement. Our show is engineered and edited by Matt Dittman. All Brazos Matters episodes are available on YouTube and on podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, iHeart, and Amazon, also on the NPR app and on the KAMU website. For Avery Foster, I am Jay Sokol. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Brazos Matters. Have a great day.